Oh man, there's a black screen here, but I think it's time to tell you guys a story. This is going to be no cuts, this is all going to be one take because I feel it's more genuine that way and I could put my words into it without too many concerns of like trying to edit it, but I do think I want to tell this story because it means a lot to me and it also kind of tells a lot about me when I was like 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think it's like 5 now, but man, I know a lot of people have a game that they really, really like, and there's a reason why I used the Solaire picture from Dark Souls 1 in the update video about my father. You know, when I tell him, oh, he's okay, it's great. There's a lot of a deeper meaning there, mostly for me, because, well, we all have that game that helped us forget about things, you know, made us, when times were hard, when I was a kid and my parents fought, about the time, the most memorable memory I had was, I secluded myself in my room, which I had just gotten from my brother because my brother had moved out to another side of the house. Sweet times. And I remember distinctly playing Chrono Cross for the PlayStation 1. Being the kid back then, I didn't actually know that, Chrono Trigger exists. I actually, went back and played it, and that became a pretty good game. But Chrono Cross was the game that I grew up on when I was a kid. It's kind of what introduced me to a lot of Final Fantasy games and things like that, which later became pretty much something I loved as a kid. But as I grew older, my interest in those kind of RPG games faded. Mostly because of what happened sometime in 2011, I believe. In fact, I remember the day because it was actually the release date of Dark Souls, which was the game that's probably showing up on screen right now. Basically, this game really helped me a lot of ways back in 2011. In 2016, I never imagined my father would go in for another surgery on the same leg because it was quite a complex thing, but 2011 was also October, actually September heading into October probably, was one of the days that I remember the most because I would say September, last 2 days maybe of September, my father had actually gone through the surgery to get his leg. There was an aneurysm in there. He had to get it removed. Well, clean out the vein. It was a trying process, but he was doing all right for the most part. And I was at home, pretty much minding my own business, still doing things on YouTube, by the way. All those years ago. Not that great, but mostly it was just me doing what I always do. And I didn't hear much about my father until October 4th, which, up until this point, I had actually been interested in this game. I played Demon's Souls for a little bit. I'll be kind of honest here, Demon's Souls was not my favorite experience. I know a lot of people really love that one, but just not my bit. But I think the real reason this cemented is, well, we'll get to it in a second. What I distinctly remember is October 4th was the day that my father also just started bleeding from his leg wound profusely, quite a bit, at least from what I was told. I was not actually there. And he was rushed to the hospital, and we were told basically that he had an infection, that somehow the wound had gotten infected, and there was a big risk that he could lose his leg, or that there may be, in fact, some sort of blood clot that could, in fact, go through his circulatory system straight to his heart and could kill him. So I was freaking out at that point. Looking back at that, it was kind of quite strange how that went, but naturally I was nowhere near them at the time. I couldn't travel there. If I went up there, it would be 12-hour drive. He was going into surgery for a 2 to 3 hour one, and I was sitting at home with nothing to really do. So I could either sit there at the phone and just wait, and my mother, of course, being the person that she is, turned off the phone, didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to talk to anyone. Stayed down there, pretty much hunkered down, and was waiting for terrible news while I had to sit and wait for it as well. And I was not really that keen on it. And I was noticeably panic-stricken and just didn't know what to do, and I really couldn't do anything because traveling would be too much. A lot of it would be way, way too much for me. So, lucky for me, it was about the time I opened up my mailbox and found that my copy of Dark Souls had arrived. And I know this might sound really strange, but like it was either sit around waiting for possibly bad news and just be worried at every second of every day, or maybe perhaps put a video game in and try to at least ease it a bit. I mean, it's not easy to forget, but it was about the time that I turned on Dark Souls and attempted to play it. And I find a bit of irony in this game because, you know, this is a game that's so dark, or at least it says so in, you know, Dark Souls, but I really found myself kind of, for me, I had learned a little bit about it because at the time I had actually been watching a YouTuber by the name of Epic Name Bro. I don't really watch too much of his content anymore, but I watched him when he was just starting with Dark Souls, and I learned a few things that were tips at the time, and I was just like, okay, I'm ready to go. But ironically, I didn't follow some of the advice, and at the start, I ended up wandering down into the darkest pit in what is essentially called New Londo Ruins, which is just dark and filled with death, and it's... Yay, that's something I want to think about when I'm playing this game. But luckily for me, I actually had a gift at the start of the game that managed to get me through a door that actually got me a sword that was useful for my build at the time, which is something I always will remember because it was such a strange thing to find. And I was just like, oh cool, a sword I could use. But during this process, I spent maybe an hour trying to go down there and thinking, God, this is difficult, this is hard. And then remembering, oh wait, there's a pathway up. And, you know, here we are in this dark world down at the bottom in New Londo, which is just filled with death. And I realized that I can go up and towards the light, which is, again, see a little bit of a, you know, illusion here. But I remember distinctly that I started going up, and God, I died a lot. And this was the point that I was just like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to buckle down and try to focus on something that isn't the crisis that was around me at the time. And, you know, I can't do anything about it. I can't really change the outcome. It's just going to have to go where they lie, basically, where the pieces lie. So I started climbing up towards this parish, which is the Undead Parish, which is up towards this place that's just littered with golden sunlight, basically. And I remember that I found myself climbing and dying and climbing and dying, and just, that was Dark Souls for you. When you're new to it, I didn't remember anything from Demon Souls. I remembered only a little bit of tips that I had learned. I managed to get the Drake Sword, which was a hidden object, and it's probably not going to be shown in the video because I just kind of did a cursory glance at the game while I was recording this footage. And I remember being told that there was this really big boar creature that was just kind of waiting there at one point. And I'm like, oh god, that sounds terrifying. And managing to kill it in my first try, that was amazing. And that was a lot of fun. It's just, god, just so many memories with that. It's kind of strange, but I noticed as I was, you know, climbing up towards this this goal here, to ring this bell tower, apparently. Because at the time, I didn't actually know what I was doing, because being the dumbass that I am, I just kind of wandered off and did what I thought I was supposed to do. So I ended up going up and up and up and up. I ended up finally meeting the first boss, Minotaur Demon, and that was a trip and a half. I didn't realize at the time that there were archers at the top, and I ended up getting shot in the back just as he came up to pound me into the ground, and I died. So that's the first thing you learn when you play Dark Souls, is that nothing is what it seems. And ironically enough, after I beat that boss, I actually felt quite a bit of relief, because at that, something it's really strange, because something so tense could bring about something so easy. This sense of relief where I'm not having to worry too much about things. Every time the phone rang, though, I jumped, and even though it probably wasn't my mother, I realized now that the operation had been probably going on for 3 hours, and I still didn't receive any word about that, and it was difficult. Very, very difficult. So, eventually, I managed to make my way up to this place called the Undead Parish, and this was where I started to learn about the idea of cooperating with people. This idea that basically I could summon in people who were also playing the game, and they could join me, a la Demon Souls, the whole summon sign thing. So I did that, and big props to, I believe it's Olmore. I hope you don't mind you being in this video. I was kind of still surprised that there were people actually still playing this with servers. Granted, he had a very overpowered weapon, but, well, there you have it. So, and it took a lot of tries, and I found myself in a very strange place, surrounded by a lot of difficult things that I just didn't want to deal with, and yet I struggled, I fought them, and eventually I overcame, and I got to the top of that tower, and I rang the bell. And ironically, I don't know if that would be ironically, actually, it's not Alanis Morissette we're singing here, but coincidentally, about the time that I had actually gotten up there, which was another hour past that point, where I got a phone call, and my mother had called me and had told me that he was fine, and that, there was no problem. They're going to keep him there until the wound heals fully, which would be a week. He was not exactly excited about that, and it was such a strange comparison in a sense to me, because I went back and I looked at it, and basically in Dark Souls, it kind of followed the loop of which I felt was, the trajectory of the thing basically was, I started off in a very dark place, in this place filled with death, with ghosts, with hoveled corpses, and brainless worshippers down there. And I slowly figured my way out, and I started a point, started going up, and started going up until eventually I found the point where I could find light, basically, the sun peeking out. And for a game that's so titled Dark Souls, it sure brings a lot of both the dark and the light. And I'll always remember that I got after the bell ringing, and after I got my phone call, I started placing my sign down, because I had figured out how to co-op, and I was so happy that I just started placing the sign down. I'm gonna kill the footage for now, because fortunately I didn't have a lot of time to record this, and well, I figured I would explain it as best as I could. And, well, with Dark Souls, it kind of became something that was strange. I'm not sure why. I mean, everyone kind of has their own moments with games. Everyone kind of has their own moments when it comes down to it. And whenever I find myself feeling down, for the most part, usually, if it's really bad, I'll end up booting up Dark Souls again and finding myself something that I can be excited about and, enjoying the time. And be it Dark Souls 1 or 3 or 2 or Bloodborne, I found myself connected to the series in a way because of that traumatic event that happened. And it's such a strange feeling when I think about it. I have a lot of nostalgia for the game, a lot of moments that I always remember, because after that point, every day I would, get a call or hear some news about my father, and then I would go back to playing Dark Souls to try and just not forget about, not worry. And I'll always remember times where I got to really difficult places in that game. Never again, Enter Londo, never again, but I say that, but we'll probably play it again. But, and, it it follows that trajectory of, it starts off really dark, but eventually you'll come to a place where there's light and humanity and hopefully, in some ways, relief. And you'll find your way to get past what's going on and not have to... You'll move on, basically. And that's what I felt kind of like Dark Souls was trying to tell me, in a sense, if that makes any sort of logical explanation at all, which I'm sure it doesn't, but that was the game that I got, and from that point onward, I was always dedicated to that. I liked Chrono Cross when I was a kid, and it helped me stave off all the bad times in a way. Gaming was, an escape, of course, but it also taught me that I could keep going when I needed to, and that while there are dark times, there's also light. And admittedly, YouTube's done a fair share of both, and it continues to do a fair share of both. I mean, just this morning, I realized that a lot of the summer vacation was probably over. Remember that line from Kingdom Hearts 2? Good lord, I'm such a weeb, I'm sorry. But if you remember that line at all, basically, you're a weeb, but also, I realized that my viewer base probably is going back to school, and because of that, I'm probably not going to get as much interaction as I used to, and that's a bit of a bummer to me. And I realized that I'm probably going to go back to what I was before summer vacation, despite the fact that everything seemed to be sustaining itself, and it's kind of a bummer for me, and I kind of feel a bit down about it, but the thing is, you take the dark side and you take the light, and I guess that kind of explains why Dark Souls has been that connection to me, that one big moment that I always will remember in my life, because it was such a crazy time, and it really helped me stave off the bad moments so I could find some relief without having to worry too much. And for that, I'll always be thankful, and I hope you guys, if you want to tell me any of your stories about what games you really enjoy and why, and if they have any particular, what's the word? Significance, that's it, to what what you have as a person, or what you remember when you were a kid, or anything in between, what you really loved about whatever game you played. I mean, is it something someone gave you? Were you using it for... Do you always have fond memories because it got you closer to someone? I don't know. I would like to hear it, because at this point, I'm really strongly considering doing some scripted content when it comes to this channel, because I don't mind doing the realistic things with my friends. That's fine. I can still do those. But I also want to try my hand at something big and shoot for the stars, in a sense. And maybe, just maybe, I'll do that. Because I hate feeling these dark times on YouTube or anywhere in general. So I hope you guys understand that. This is hard to explain, but it's always good with the bad with the good. And while I might feel down now, it could pick up at any time. And I'll always... that summer was crazy, guys. And it's always going to be much more fun with whatever's around the corner. And, we'll always have memories. That's what matters. So that's pretty much my story, guys. That's pretty much all I have to say. And I hope you enjoyed my story, even though it's probably not the most amazing thing out there. But hey, I really can't say too much. So... yeah, I am getting sentimental and everything, but this is just the story I wanted to tell you guys. I'm going to hop off for now. and I'll catch you all later for the next video. So see you soon.